God of the universe, maker of the stars. Who am I that you would know my name?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 72 of Life on Purpose. Yeah, so exciting. This is also fairly a first. This is the first episode of Life on Purpose. In fact, maybe in the entire history in which Mike Clayton gave words we were not allowed to say. Yeah. Apparently, I'm not allowed to say things like old,
Mhm,
elderly, no mention of
mhm,
nursing home, nothing
mhm,
like this. I don't know.
mhm,
Yeah, first
mhm,
time. I don't know
mhm.
why he felt the need to lay these ground rules down.
I
So
don't know.
let's
I normally have total trust in you, but with our subject matter tonight, I got to tell you, been thinking about this since we talked on Shabbat, and maybe a little nervous. We'll see.
Yeah, so it takes a bit to make Mike Clayton nervous, I think. But on Shabbat, Mike and I had this conversation about, what are we going to do next with
Mm-hmm.
Life on Purpose? And I'm like, Mike, I'll tell you what I wanted to do. And since then, of like, I want to give to you the questions that Alex would have asked let's see, can't say older, come up with something else, a grandfatherly man when I was, say, about 50. Oh, look at that. I rolled that wasn't any better. So what would what would the youngest generation
Okay.
ask the older generation in that, a grandfather figure in that? I had questions,
Okay.
and then and I believe, in my interaction with my job, I get to see a lot of different people, meet a lot of different people. And there's a generation out there that's asking a lot of questions that
Mm-hmm.
nobody's answering. And so this isn't going to be, take the questions of a generation and lay them on the shoulders of Mike Clayton,
Okay.
but rather lay them before the Torah
Okay.
and before a
Okay.
man so you have dedicated your life to learning and teaching the Torah. And so it's going to be very much a series there. Now, before I
Okay.
jump in any further, though, I hear you had some kind of announcement of some
I
kind.
do have an announcement. Actually, just a word of congratulations. So 1 year ago in Tennessee, I was at the Revive conference, and a young man that I had met in Kentucky just a few months prior was there, and we were talking, and he said, "Wow, Mike, all I want to do is just meet a girl and get married and raise a family." And he said, "I just can't find anybody." And it was just a few minutes later that the elevator door opened. And so literally the door opened. So congratulations on a 1 year anniversary of meeting for Jared and Lael, or Aurora Lael. They're faithful listeners to this program and just very, very dear friends. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Congratulations. Very
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Congrats. Congrats, Jared. Congrats
And
to you both.
looking forward to the day that I can lock you. I see you have this list of questions. I have this list of people. Okay,
Oh, really?
yeah, I have a list of people that I want to one day lock in a room and just be like the interrogator thing through the double
Mm-hmm.
the window. And
Oh,
right now it is probably you, Jared, and Ryan Cribbs.
oh my. So
Hmm.
so the scenario is we're gonna think we're sitting there alone talking, but you're gonna be sitting there with the popcorn and just enjoy.
At least, at least, at
Yeah.
least. So, okay. Well, hey, with that, fire away, man. Let's see what you can
All
do about
right.
stumping me.
Okay, right. So basic introduction to this
Okay.
idea of these next few podcasts, as I've said, is laying these questions before you. And moving forward, I foresee more than one episode as we move through, say, some life seasons,
Okay.
as well as some specific subject material.
Hmm.
Now, as we move forward, there's going to be some pretty heavy subjects that we have to
Okay.
get into because these questions aren't being answered. Now, to our listeners, as we have always done on Life on Purpose, if we're going to get into a very serious or conversation, we will, of course, forewarn you as parents and say, "Hey,
Hmm.
listen to this episode first before then proceed."
Yeah.
and make your own decision as to whether your children should listen. Now, if
Yeah.
you do not, and they just, just hand them, hey, just listen. I'm not responsible for your poor
No,
choices as
no.
parents. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
I was only responsible for my own.
Oh, mercy. And
Mm.
yes, responsible for my own choices.
Yeah.
So let's start out with this concept of this role of grandfather.
Okay.
Um, So such an interesting title for one, to not be just be someone's father, but to be the grandfather. And you yourself are a grandfather, right? I know
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
had this conversation. You've got there. I have nowhere near reached this goal. I am the father though of two children. So what do you think of, Mike, when you think of grandfather and interaction with the grandchildren? Do you think that it is this essential role or is it optional? Where your thoughts immediately go there?
I think it's one of the most incredible I times of life, being in this grandfather, and that they call me Grandpa Sir. I might be the only Grandpa Sir on the planet, but that's okay because that's kind of my personality. But to quote another teacher who actually I heard this is not original. They said one of the most amazing things about having grandchildren is watching your children parent.
Mm.
Okay, because the whole thing of parenthood, okay, grandparenthood, parenthood, all of those things, it's a very fascinating job to begin with, in that you come in trying to work yourself out of a job as fast as you possibly can. All right. Now, we
Interesting.
mentioned
Yes.
on previous programs okay, I no longer had to go down the baby food aisle
Yes.
because I had worked myself, and Kathy had worked, we had worked ourselves out of having to spoon feed the child. The next
Hmm.
was the diaper aisle because we had worked ourselves out of a job of having to do that. Okay.
Mm.
I mean, when you hear from the bathroom, I'm done, you know that there's
Oh, just
something.
iconic.
Yeah, I
So
know.
many hours of my life.
Okay. So you know that something's about to happen, right? Or has happened, and you got to clean it up, and you're
Yes.
wondering, did they hit the toilet this time? All right. And so
Oh.
it is kind of cute looking back at it. But if the kid's 15 and still doing the same thing, you failed. And
Absolutely.
so the greatest thing is watching your children as they're parenting, uh, because you kind of get an idea of how you did.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh my. I
Yeah,
didn't
you
think
get
that.
an idea of, well, okay, I think I was fairly successful at this area. Well, I really blew it there. Um, and so you can do that. But then grandparenting is you have to be able to be involved, but also with the permission of the parent.
Mm.
Okay, you're the
Hmm.
elder in the room, hopefully. I've seen some grandparents that aren't, but you're the elder in the room, and so you biblically have authority, but yet your children actually have the authority over the parents. So you become this kind of a teamwork.
All right.
And that's the fascinating one. You become this teamwork of, I know some things that I'd like to do. I see some things, but should I involve myself here? Should I not? Should I back up? Uh, and you find out that probably the best thing that you can do in life for your children and grandchildren at that point in time is to pray, because
Interesting.
there's coming a time in which you're not going to be there.
Hmm.
I think that in this stage of life, you become that I'm at, and okay, I'm 66, but at this stage in life, I'm coming to the realization that though I refuse to grow up, um, I just life is limited.
Hmm.
I have
Mhm.
more years behind me probably than in front of me. I don't know a lot of people that are like 132. Um,
Right.
I do have the mental facilities to have done that without a calculator, off the top of my
I
head.
was proud of you. I double
Yes,
checked your math. I'm like,
thank you very much.
oh, nice.
Yeah, I was just really hoping I got that right. But you're thinking about, what am I going to leave?
Mm.
What is
Mhm.
the legacy I'm going to leave? A friend of mine, Barry Phillips, um, his dad died a number of years ago. I went to the funeral, and they were all talking about the legacy. And I said, Charlie Phillips it's not a legacy, it's like a legend
Mm.
in many ways. And I was blessed to have people in my life that are the same way. And I want to be the same in my own children and grandchildren's lives, that I want there to be, not for my, not to puff myself up, but I want there to be generations talking about me
Mhm. No,
for,
that makes sense.
so because I passed on a baton of righteousness
Mhm.
unto them.
Mhm.
So how's that for number one?
Absolutely.
Follow up?
Absolutely. Yes. So follow up there and concept. We immediately understand when you see, single moms, single dads out there. It is not any question that neither man nor woman was meant to raise children on their own.
Mm,
We're fully aware it is meant to be, mom and dad
hmm.
combination. Do you think that there is something that ends up missing for children, for say those who have become parents who are trying to raise children without grandparents? And I don't mean grandparents that might be physically present, but if they're not emotionally, spiritually involved, do you think
Hmm.
there's a something missing there if they're trying to do that without the grandparents' involvement?
Well, I think grandparents' involvement, husband, wife, for me, my mother and father divorced when I was 8 years old.
Mm,
Um, and it was, I mean, people that have listened to me for a while, I'm very open about this. I do not have not one single good memory of my father.
mm,
My first memory of my father is asking my mother why he's living in the garage.
mm,
And the next one is, Mommy, why are we having to leave our house? Because Daddy was trying to kill me. Um,
mm,
yeah, I mean, it's rough. And so I was blessed that I had a grandmother, my mother's mother, on one side, a very righteous woman. Her picture is behind me in all this stuff. Prayed a lot, taught me faith, and
mhm.
there's things that a grandparent can say that a parent can't. It's kind of like your children will go to the neighbor and talk to the parents over, next door, and the next door neighbor's children are coming and talking to you.
All right.
It's just kind of strange there. But there's this demonic, I'll go ahead and just call it that, thing that is trying to keep children from talking to their own parents, and sometimes it's deserved, because the parents are making a lot of mistakes. And I mean, that was my life. So I had other people, other friends of mine, whose parents were like my mom and dad. On the
So,
other hand, on the other side of that, I had a grandmother, my father's mother, very, very active in my life. And then her second husband, who was, I called granddaddy, but he wasn't actually my granddad by blood, but was probably the most influential man in my life as I was growing up. I learned from him respect,
mm,
in so many ways. I just respected him, um, and it was not something he asked for. It's funny. I teach today that, parents, tell your children that you're proud of them. Hug them, even if they don't want to be hugged. Okay,
mhm.
we have our grandson Chase here with it. He's 13, doesn't want to be hugged. So what? Okay. I
Right.
don't care. Um, because that is needed. Okay. And I say that because I know my grandfather never said, "I'm proud of you."
Hmm.
He never hugged me. He was not. This is World War II era of person. You didn't do those things.
Hmm.
Okay, so being grandfather today, I think, is being able to kind of. I'm not on the hook for a lot of things. I
Right.
gotta behave myself to the best of my ability. That's difficult for me at times.
It's difficult for you, but yeah.
Yeah, I have to behave myself, and I fully and completely I try my best to respect my sons, my daughter, and their parenting. But there's things I'm not responsible for. If I pick up one of the little ones and they smell, I pass them off. I'm
Absolutely.
not responsible for that.
You worked yourself out of that job.
Yeah, I did. I did. But at the same time, because I have that little bit of a detachment, I think I can come in to a different place in their life, and I'm not really sure what that is actually. Um, I up until like 13 years ago, I'd never been a grandfather before.
Interesting. I
Yeah,
never thought, you never think of this trying to figure out a new role. I never pondered that, but I guess, year one, you're like, what is this and how do I do this? I thought I'd finished
yeah.
learning things in life, but you've stepped
No,
into a new
no. I
role.
mean, yeah. You wake up one morning and okay, might as well go be stupid one time today. Um, you wake up and you figure out you're married to a grandmother.
Been nice knowing you, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's doing the same thing. I'm married to a grandfather. Oh wow,
Oh,
like I mean, life is moving on, and there's nothing you can do about it. But you know that there's coming a day. I think the most serious thing is, me and Chase spent time out on the golf course today. He had never hit a golf ball, and
hmm.
I told him, I said, "You hit the ball 100 yards, we'll play golf." He nailed it. And we went out and played, and it was an amazing, amazing time. We went to lunch together today. We spent time with Mary and your boys this past
Hmm.
Sunday. Memories,
Hmm.
memories that you can pass on. And uh, let me go ahead and hit this briefly, and do a follow up, or put this in questions for later. I think people are cheating themselves today. When I was growing up with my granddad, I would sit in the living room of his house, him in his recliner, um, and he would start telling me stories
Mm.
of hunting, of fishing, of being a mechanic for Shaw Keeter Motors in Gainesville, Florida, working on Model A's. I still have some of the tools that I got handed down to me. I remember the stories that he told me. I think that for a generation that we have now that is so locked into screens,
Hmm.
uh, you know, well, let's go to a movie together. Guys, that movie is not going to pass on anything. It's not
Mm.
going to pass on the legacy. We have a generation today, and I'm fighting this within. I mean, even in my own family, it's hard to do because I, what I would give to be able to sit down and talk to my granddaddy and one more time and ask him about
Mm.
some things.
Hmm.
But I didn't know to do that.
So that leads me to actually kind of three different questions there. Um, do you feel that, and I think you've basically said so, I'm just specifically asking, do you feel that at some point having the grandfather involved or grandparent involved can help cover some gaps of the parents?
Oh yeah, yeah. You should
Mm.
have the grandparent can have conversations that again the grandparent and the parent should be smarter than the child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In theory.
In theory, this is not always the case. But if the grandparent and the parents are working together in this, they can then fill in some gaps of things that the parents are not able to work with. I mean, just I can't really think of anything specific detail right now. Um, but
I
you
don't
can,
think it's a specific detail or
yeah.
like huge blank subject that you as a parent can't cover, but the grandparent can. I think it's very much just maybe coming at a different angle or covering or adding on to all of the same subjects, mind you, but just coming at it from different angles or adding on different pieces to
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
And back to I think here's one back to what I was just talking about. That the grandparent has the ability to pass on the legacy better than the parent does.
Ah,
Okay,
because
the
you can focus
grandparent,
on passing on the legacy, but the parent is busy working themselves out of a job.
right? So you have in scripture what's called Mama's Torah, then you have Daddy's Torah, and those are, I mean, this would be a program itself. But coming into the world, an infant goes by mommy's Torah first, which is the very basics of nurturing of life and how to be nurtured, and then trying to show that nurturing to someone else. Then you go to daddy's Torah, and this is where parents have a problem here because mom wants to nurture, dad wants to challenge, or that's the way it
Right.
should be. All
Right.
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 There's like um, mommy's like, well, don't hurt yourself. Daddy's like, it'll heal.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And there's a balance between
Mom
the two.
says, "Don't fall off the swing." Don't
Hmm.
fall. Dad says, "Can you make it to the other side?"
Yeah.
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 So
Absolutely.
both of them, and that has to balance out. So
Hmm.
they're dealing with all those life issues, whereas the grandparent is free to sit down and talk about what it was like when they grew up.
Hmm.
At Chase today, and I try not to use my children and grandchildren too much, but I'll do something on this one. Chase lives in Colorado, and so we drove by Dollar General. Well, they don't have a Dollar General in the area where he's at, and so he said, "Wow, Dollar General, is everything a dollar?" I said, "No, no, not anymore." And I said, "It's the same as Family Dollar." Well, they don't have one of those, but they do have a Dollar Tree. Um, which, by the way, no follower of Scripture should ever be caught in a idolatry. Dollar Tree,
Oh.
RR. Yeah, okay.
Oh.
So that's not the
That's
place you should be
granddad
shopping.
level joke right
There you
there.
go.
You went
There you go.
beyond dad
Yeah,
joke. You got
yeah.
granddad joke
It
there.
is. It is. So, we're driving, and I said, yeah, and when I was growing up, we had a five and dime. And I said, "Do you know why they called it five and dime?" And he's like, and I can't remember his answer. And I said, "Because everything in there cost either a nickel or a dime. Most everything costs a nickel or a dime." I said, "You could buy a candy bar for a nickel." He
Mm.
said, "Man, they're $2 now." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But you got to look at the wages, and it's all relative in the end. But these are just things that you're passing on. The little thing, you never know what they're going to grasp a hold of. So you kind of throw things out, and it's like fishing. We're out there with the boys the other day. What are we doing? We're throwing a bait into the water, and eventually a fish comes along. And as Mary won, Chase caught a bluegill, and Mary caught the little bass. Um, but if you do that with your grandchildren, with children, with people around you that you're trying to um, be a part of their lives, and you're trying to make an impact on their lives, it's like fishing. You throw something at them until they bite,
I love
and
that.
then you run with the conversation.
Mm. So, that leads me to the second of the two questions I was going to
Mm,
follow up. And if y'all hear nothing else, hear this question because this was the foundational idea for this section here. Do you think that being that grandparent role is limited to your biological grandchildren?
Absolutely not.
Have you found yourself in the grandparent role with other people? with other people's children, if you will.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
you know a few.
I know a few. Yes, I
Yeah.
do. Yes, I do.
Um, I, I like this role. I like being, um, I'm not trying to be their friend all the time.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm not trying to be their little buddy. They're little buddies for the playground. You always want to be, I try to have fun with kids. You know that.
Hmm.
I will hug them when they don't want to be hugged, and especially when it's not your biological, what it is, but when it's not, you're very careful with that, as I try to be. Um, this is never something that you're trying that should ever have the appearance in any way, shape, or form of being out of boundaries. Okay, so you set some very firm boundaries regarding that. Um, I set very firm boundaries if I have one of those children that comes to me and says, "Hey, Mike, could I talk to you? Could I ask you some questions?" I'm very cautious there, and there comes a time if it's questions that are I think are in a level over here. We'll just kind of talk around this. I will go and maybe to the parents and say, listen, they're asking these questions. Where do we go from here? But I want to be
Hmm.
available. I want
Hmm.
to be available for that. And a lot of parents they have a difficult time,
Hmm.
especially if they weren't raised by parents that my mother of blessed memory, boy, she worked hard as a single mom to raise me. She had no idea how to do that. Um, I was a obstacle. I mean, I've many times tried to repent for the tears that I caused my mom. But she didn't know how to raise me, and the men that were around, um, they weren't real good at it either. So trying to find somebody that is, as we talked about, being a mentor, you know,
Hmm.
um, trying to find someone, and then you got to develop these relationships. So I'm looking for these young people, down to children that I want to be fun
Hmm.
with them, but I want to be relevant.
Hmm.
I don't want to just be, some grandparents to me are they're silly. I don't do silly
Yes.
well, you
Yes.
know.
I see. Because I think they lose, and this is just me trying to look at, I see these interactions and I see parents that somehow look at the children and think I can just treat it like a child
Hmm.
versus they've lost the mentality. Like you're not necessarily still trying to work yourself out of a job, right? The parents are in the middle of raising,
Hmm.
but at the point of oven, you should have the end goal of looking at the child and recognizing what they could be. Maybe even you might even have a better view of the child's potential than the parents do, maybe,
Hmm.
is like an outside third party, if you will.
Hmm.
And so I see too many parents that don't treat their children, their grandchildren, pardon me, they don't treat their grandchildren with that with a simple, honestly, with a degree of respect. Because a child can feel disrespected as well
Yeah.
by being talked down to as that, because a child recognizes when they're talked down to, and they don't want that.
And the grandparent needs to not just be a clown.
Right.
Okay, we shouldn't. Hey, let's go over to Grandpa's house and see what he does. What's his newest trick? Um, it's some grandparents that I've seen, and I'm not trying to cast judgment here, but some grandparents, and the same as with parents, um, you gotta live life in such a way that people take you seriously.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Nobody's going to take me serious if I like at Life Assembly. If you guys come and I get up and do a little song and dance kind of thing. Hey, we're going to learn how to do clogging this week. Great, clogging's great. I got some friends of mine that do that. Their children do that, but I'm not trying to entertain. Okay.
Right.
Um, you can be funny. you can have a good time, but what are you going to be remembered for? Just that you were kind of this silly clown,
Mhm.
or you were. If you want respect, be worthy of respect. Don't demand respect.
Don't demand it, be worthy of it.
Yeah, never in life should anyone ever demand respect, because you can't demand it. You can demand fear. People will be scared of you, but you cannot demand respect. Respect has to be earned.
Hmm.
And that's where maybe it breaks down, because let me tell you, demand or earning respect takes time,
In
sometimes a long
theory,
time.
and if I may say, in theory, if you had lived your life as you should, by that point, you should have had the time and effort in to have earned the respect
Yeah.
because you do have that. So if I hear what you're saying, I hear you saying that being a grandparent, and let me play this a little bit differently. Suppose you don't biologically have grandchildren, but you are an older person who should have accumulated life's wisdom and knowledge. You should be this older mentor. I hear you saying that this role of grandparent is a mantle, if you will, a weight on your shoulders that you should recognize. That there's a heavy weight and responsibility to it, honestly.
Yes. But it also has to come with permission.
Mm.
Okay.
Hmm.
If there's, somebody that I know that, maybe it's a broken family or something, and I'm like, hey, I can come in and kind of help with that. You know, you need permission.
Hmm.
You need to work through the authority figures here.
Hmm.
If there's a single mom, um, I cannot be dad. Okay.
No,
I'm not there.
no.
I have to have, there has to be boundaries in this relationship, and there must be the communication there. But if I was to be raising children today, um, and not having grandparents in their lives, I would be looking for somebody that I could go to and say, "Hey, could you help me?"
Hmm.
The
There's a
problem, Alex, is that there's just not that many people that I would trust.
right. Um, Two things that come to mind there. There's the Stoic philosophers taught that when the student was ready, the teacher appeared.
Exactly.
And so I think that that's exactly the role, exactly what you're talking about. You're not talking about being there's someone over there that needs teaching. I'm going to step in and declare myself the mentor and the teacher,
Mhm.
but rather that you as the grandfather, as the older mentor role, should be looking for the people who walk up and ask for mentorship.
Mhm. I think Proverbs talks about to loosely quote one of the verses. Um, when you give advice to somebody that's not looking for it,
Mm.
it never goes well. Okay, it just
Absolutely.
never goes well, and I'm guilty of that. Um, wisdom is
Doctor,
something. I
I listened to an interview of Dr. James Dobson, who was talking about his children and his grandchildren, and he said, we vowed we would never give unasked for advice. And someone asked him, well, how is that going? He says, do you want to know how long my tongue used to be? Because I've bitten it off.
Yeah, James Dobson was a mentor to me before he had grandchildren. I used to listen to him. He had a broadcast on 5 days a week, and
Hmm.
I listened to that faithfully every morning. And Jim Dobson really filled in a lot of the gaps for me as a parent, because I did, parenting doesn't come with instructions really. Your
No, I
children.
haven't found the manual for that yet.
No, no. And,
Mm.
we've talked about how the firstborn, there's a reason why they get a double inheritance, because they deserve it. Okay.
My mother always said that the firstborn, she said that was the one that turns out good in spite of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, she said
I
that's the
mean,
one you make all the mistakes on.
yeah, I won't tell you what some of them Kathy might, but I will not tell you some of the things that poor girl. Wow, and she's turned out so amazing in spite of her dad. Made
Uh,
all the mistakes, and
mm.
you find out in this whole thing, you find out a lot about yourself, whether it's parenting or grandparenting. The whole thing, you find out a lot about yourself, and you're still like, I don't like me sometimes,
I
you
found that
know?
as well.
Yeah.
I found very much that as I would, in raising my children, I would come through a scenario, whatever that random scenario would be, and I would have straight up flashbacks, memories that had never come to me in
Mm.
decades, come back to me from my childhood and realize, oh, well, here's something I need to work through so that I can raise my child.
Yeah.
There's nothing that makes you want to grow up more, for me at least, than having the weight and responsibility of the child on me.
But
And
here's something you just hit, Alex, is you're desiring that weight, the
do you think that's
responsibility.
do you think that's why I see so many uninvolved, or whether they're physically or just emotionally uninvolved, or just clowns, as we put it, harsh words, I love them. Is Can you hear me now?
Are you back?
We
Yeah.
had a little
Okay.
break.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Clowns, as you put it.
Right. So if there are so many, is it the possibility that there are so many uninvolved grandparents, whether physically present or not? Is that there are those who do not want the responsibility? Is that a fair question?
I
Because it
think
is
that
additional responsibility to take on.
um, I'm maybe the one of the only ones that is either brave enough or stupid enough to say this, but in my
It's my fault
estimation,
because I asked you.
okay, yeah, I've said it before, but in my estimation, what has been called the greatest generation, this generation that came through World War II. Um, I mean, if it had not been for them, we would be either speaking Japanese or German right now.
Absolutely.
So, our veterans that we have that went through World War II, my father, for one, um, he did not die in the war, but he might as well have,
Mm,
what he came back, the what it cost him while he was there. Uh, I won't go into that subject right now, but in some ways, the greatest generation has become the most selfish generation.
mm,
That the bumper sticker, I'm spending my kid's inheritance. Um, okay, you may be enjoying yourself. That's fine, but at what expense is that? Well, we've just, we don't see our children much, because we're flying off to Paris next week and to hear um, I don't fault anybody for, you've worked all your life, your retirement, you have maybe a decent income or, money put back and you're enjoying some years here. Hey, that's great. That's great. But to think that you're just uninvolved, um, people are selling them. They're losing out. I talk to people now, guys that I know that I play golf with. And one of the reasons I do that, I mean, my dog is smarter than me. Um, I throw a ball. She looks at me and says, "You threw it, go get it." You know, I hit a ball and I chase it and I hit it again. Uh, I'm not smart, but you know, this whole thing of I learn a lot from these guys. Most of them are secular, and they're like, well, my children don't want to see me. Yeah, I saw my grandkids, a few years ago. I mean, they live down the street or something. They're not involved. They're not involved in those lives, and they're missing out because in the end, are the children and grandchildren, when they're standing there, will they learn more? Let's just go to grandparents. Will the grandchildren learn more at the memorial service than they ever did during the lifetime?
Mm,
And if asked to put something on the tombstone, would they have any clue what to put on there?
mm,
Grandpa, I don't know anything else. Well, you know, the pastor is standing up or some friends are standing up and talking about it. They didn't know. They didn't know. Why?
mm,
Because the grandparents had lived their lives for themselves. There never comes a time in your life, Alex, that I have found that you get to live your life for you.
mm,
In fact, if there is, that would probably go down as the most empty time that there was in your life.
mm,
Is the time that you choose, you know, me and my wife are just going to live for ourselves for a year. You would probably look back and go, that was the most empty year we had because you quit giving to other people. It's like the topography. To I don't even know what that is. May not be anything. The topography of Israel is interesting in that you have the Jordan, the Jordan River, that flows from Mount Hermon down through the area of Tel Dan and comes through the Galilee region, goes to the Galilee, and then it exits the Galilee and goes to the Dead Sea. So at the Dead Sea, it just stops. The Galilee is teeming with life. The Dead Sea has none. Why?
mm,
Because the Dead Sea lives only for itself,
mm,
to replenish itself. It is selfish. It's not giving. And
mm,
therefore, if you're not giving, you can't have life. It is in through giving of your life that you find life.
mm. There is a basic teaching in psychology that if you want to, and basic philosophy where they agree, is that if you want to be bothered less by your own troubles, focus on someone else's.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
No doubt about
And
that. Yeah. Well, we got about maybe 5 minutes. You got another little.
last thoughts here. Last question, last thoughts as we move forward. I'll give my last question, then I'll kind of give the rundown of where we're going from here. Last question. Do you think you could summarize, or what do you feel is the cost to the younger generation? I'm talking all the way from old enough to talk to say that, honestly, till before end up becoming a parent. What do you feel is the cost to that younger generation of not having that grandparent mentor?
Oh, I hate to just tag in off of our program here, but purpose.
How so?
I can relate to my grandchildren how my life has been one of purpose.
Hmm?
That my life has been directed not by luck, not by random chance, but by God Himself. And therefore, I can then pass on a relationship, not a religion, but a relationship. Um, I mentioned my grandmother on
Hmm.
my mother's side. Granny was never rich in by any stretch of the imagination, but she always said, "Honey child," because see, we're from the South. So she'd
Right.
say, "Honey child, the good Lord will provide." And
Hmm.
I've told the story about me going to Barnett Bank on Edgewood Avenue in Jacksonville with Granny. We'd get out of her old Plymouth car, and I'd want to go into the bank because I'd get a sucker, a lollipop, and watching Granny as she'd deposit her little Social Security check, probably not more than a few $100s, and she'd always ask the teller for now however much her tithe was. She said, "Now give me this amount of money in brand new bills." She would never put a used bill in the offering plate. And I
Wow.
remember that. But Granny, I remember going over to her house one day and her air conditioner had gone out. And we're talking about a window air conditioner.
Mm-hmm.
Granny didn't have the money to have it fixed. And back then you didn't go to the box store and buy a new one. You had somebody come fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And Granny said, and this is in Florida. This is North Florida in the summer. It's hot and humid. And Granny said, Granny says, air conditioner's broken. I don't know what I'm going to do, but the good Lord's going to provide. I was sitting there when she went to the mailbox that day. This is when the mail came to your house, and I could still hear the metal clank when the envelopes were put in there, and the postman would close it. It would have a specific clank to it. And I remember Granny going to the mailbox when she heard that, and she came back in, and a nephew of hers up in Atlanta had sent a check to her, and it was the exact amount she needed to fix the air conditioner.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Honey child, the good Lord provided."
Mm-hmm.
That's what I can do. That's what I can leave in whatever memories my children and grandchildren have. I would pray that those memories are so infilled with the Creator himself that they find their own relationship and therefore find their own purpose in him.
Absolutely. Wow. I suppose we will wrap up this episode with that. I don't think we can top that, sir. Moving forward in these next series, I'm going to plan on visiting different stages of life with you and different questions I'd like to go over. I think we may as well start with childhood. Next week will be a rough. And the interesting thing, y'all, is that Mike has asked never to get the list of questions. So this is Mike Clayton right off the cuff here.
Yeah.
So
and this is not the Mike Clayton show, by the way. I'm not.
No, and that's also part of what I was saying is none of this, and why I wanted to have this specifically with you is this is not to lay these questions on the shoulders of one person, but to lay them before the Torah, to allow God to use you to meet the need of teaching and answering these questions from the perspective of God's divine will for his people.
Well, may the questions you come up with, Alex, be directed by him.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So everyone remember this. In the end, it is the Creator who has a plan for you. Plans for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. And if you'll seek him, you'll be able to maybe pass that future and hope and plans and purposes on to somebody else. And that is really the key to all of life. Take care, Alex. See you next week, man.
Who am I that you would know my name? What kind of love would walk